talking about that. It's really kind of shameful. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the reason why people are on food stamps, especially now, is because it has been a long time coming out of the recession. We know that unemployment still is very high, and frankly, I believe if it wasn't for the self-inflicted injuries that this Congress has done to the economy, we should be roaring right now. There should be plenty of jobs. But the cuts that have been imposed because of the sequester and because of the Republican agenda contributes to the fact that people need food stamps. You are talking about food primarily to children, primarily to people who are underemployed.
You know, I think, Richard, the thing that is so striking to me is the insensitivity of the citizens in America that need food stamps. Like someone wants to be on food stamps or use food stamps, and that food stamps is some great profit to somebody. This month, President Obama talked about the importance that food stamp is, the program, SNAP, what it is to millions of Americans. Listen to this.
A large majority of SNAP recipients are children, or the elderly, or Americans with disabilities. A lot of others are hardworking Americans who need just a little help feeding their families while they look for a job or they're trying to find a better one. And in 2012, the SNAP program kept nearly 5 million people, including more than 2 million children, out of poverty. Think about that. 5 million people.
Richard, 5 million people, 2 million children.
Right.
The elderly, some veterans. I mean, what is Cheney and his allies talking about?
Also, most importantly, working families. You know, the conservative idea is that the people on food stamps are somehow sponging, they're unwilling to work. But Dick Cheney surely ought to remember that his former boss, George W. Bush, ran as a compassionate conservative, and that compassion back in 2000, which I'm sure he remembers well, was actually about this very issue, was about whether the House GOP was right to seek budget cuts on the backs of the working poor, as George W. Bush, then Texas governor, described them. You know, if he paid attention to the budget debate right now, Dick Cheney would know that food stamps have actually been cut in this latest budget round. He would know that actually there's no real choice, there's no simple choice for any president between military spending and this kind of food stamp, this safety net aid. So he's wrong on the politics, he's wrong on the facts, and I'm afraid he's clearly forgotten who he ran for president and vice president with.
And as I said in the opening, food stamps increased under he and President Bush to a larger percentage than they have under President Obama. But I suppose, Congresswoman, what strikes me even more is not only the policies against the poor, but the vile rhetoric that we've seen, how they've had this ugly rhetoric to denigrate the poor. Listen to this.
We don't want to turn the safety net into a hammock that lulls able-bodied people into lives of dependency and complacency.
Self-reliance means if anyone will not work, neither should he eat.
We need to make sure our government programs encourage work, not dependence.
Really poor children in really poor neighborhoods have no habits of working and have nobody around them who works.
I mean, the politics of denigrating the poor, the way that they seem to use them as a way to try to play to some imaginary base or real base, to me is just totally against what this country should be standing for.
Well, I think so, absolutely. And we also know that it's completely based in ignorance. I mean, just like your other guest said, the majority of people on food stamps are working people. They just do not make enough money. So if you want to get people off food stamps, how about raising the minimum wage? How about addressing income inequality? How about expanding jobs? I mean, you know, the president put forward a Jobs Act a couple of years ago that has not been acted on in this Congress. There are things that we could do to reduce the number of people that need food stamps. But in the meantime, I mean, you know, someone said that if you don't work, you don't eat. So if you know that the majority of people using food stamps, number one, are employed, and number two, are children, what message is that actually sending? It is extremely mean-spirited, but fundamentally, it's ignorant.
You know, Richard, the Congresswoman talks about the minimum wage. Today, we learned more about how House Democrats are pressuring Republicans on the minimum wage. Tomorrow, House Democrats will file a petition on a bill that would raise the minimum wage to $10.10. They need 218 signatures to bring the bill to a vote, which means getting about 24 Republicans to sign on. But Senate Democrats said today that Republicans will likely filibuster a minimum wage bill, so it might not get through. But Richard, what could it mean politically?
Well, I'm sure it won't get through, not in this environment, but it is an important debate to have about what opportunities there are for working people. You know, if Democrats are going to just be talking about the bottom of the safety net, then they haven't got a great agenda of opportunity, which they really want to talk about. And that's where the minimum wage comes in, where if you ask people, what do you think a fair minimum wage is? You would get numbers way ahead of where the current federal minimum wage is. That's why retailers like the Gap are making moves of their own. When the private sector is moving already, then Republicans are saying this isn't actually about what the private sector wants or the idea that it's going to destroy jobs. This is really about ideology and what we think people deserve. And that's a strangely kind of value judgment position for them to be taking about what level working people should get, as opposed to the retail sector saying, hey, we can afford this, it's okay.
But Congresswoman, you know, today President Obama formally ordered a complete withdrawal of military from Afghanistan by the end of the year. It's worth looking at a chart of military spending for 2012. On the left are the combined costs of the top 10 largest military budgets after the United States. And America is larger than all of them combined. So doesn't it make sense to reduce the military budget as we bring 2 wars to an end? If we're bringing military out of Afghanistan, if we're ending 2 wars, why would we need the same military budget?
Well, absolutely right. And frankly, I hope that we take the savings and invest it in our economy and in jobs, because just think about it. When we end the war, we're going to be bringing home tens of thousands of young men and women. Where are they going to work? They need jobs. You know that people in our military, some of the families, they actually are recipients of food stamps. So not only is it time that we invest in jobs, we also have to raise the minimum wage. We need to address income inequality so that people don't need food stamps. That's the real way to do it, versus a punitive approach, which is what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been doing, and it is driven completely by a conservative ideology.
Congresswoman Karen Bass and Richard Wolff, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Thanks for having us on.
Still ahead, we'll show you Ted Nugent's new ugly comments about the president and reveal why he's got plenty of company in the GOP. Plus the growing outrage over a plan to legalize discrimination in Arizona. I'll talk to actor and activist George Takei. Also, a somber moment to reflect and re-energize. Tomorrow marks 2 years since the death of Trayvon Martin. I'll talk to his father, Tracy Martin, about Trayvon's legacy. The Jordan Davis